It's all about the debt profile of Nigeria and, of course, the prospect of going out there to borrow some more for the year 2025, about 2 billion US dollars. That is what we are taking a look at. Don't forget about the visit to Washington, D.C., by our Labor Union president. Nigeria was like, please stop giving us loans because the loans are not used for what they tell you that to be used for. So please stop it. But here we are. All the process have been done, already concluded, they've signed, they've dotted the I's and crossed the T's. Now we are saying the year 2025, welcome to more borrowing. With me here in the studio is a statistician, a professor of statistics, University of Benin. Join me to welcome Professor Owen Olowu. Prof, it's a pleasure to have you join me this morning.
Listen, good morning. Good morning, viewers at home.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
I know that this is not the first time we're hearing about debt profile. Nigeria is still going out there to borrow, despite the fact that we are neck in so deep in debt, but we're still going out there to borrow. This year now, fresh loan over 2 billion US dollars in view. What do you have to say about this?
Well, I will speak on the layman perspective on this.
Okay.
But that is not to say that I don't have. When I say layman perspective, I'm not going to use technical terms, so that people on the street, our viewers who are not possibly experts in this area, can also understand what we are saying. To say the least, or to be very factual, there is nothing wrong about borrowing. There's nothing wrong about borrowing. The only challenge we have in this part of the world is that we borrow money for a particular reason and money end up in private pockets. There is hardly any country, there's no country in this world that is not indebted in one way or the other to the monitoring agency like the IMF, World Bank, and the various monetary agency in their continents. Like in Africa, we have the Africa Development Bank, which of course is headed by one of us, Nigeria. And these countries, these monetary agencies, if they don't see prospect in the country, prospect and ability to repay back the loans, they won't dole out cash to you. They are not Father Christmas, as the case may be. For them to readily be available to give out monies at any time the need arises or our leaders approach them is because they have seen prospect and they have seen ability to repay this particular loan. But the only worry that I have as a citizen of this country is that, you see, the money we are borrowing is not in our own currency. The United States is indebted. The United States of America is indebted. The United States is indebted in trillions of dollars. The United States of America that you see sponsoring, giving aids. The recent one they just stopped is the U.S. aid. And many other funding agencies which they use to also promote their interest in countries where they possibly have interest in. The United States is indebted in trillions of dollars. But the only difference between the United States of America and Nigeria is that the United States is indebted in its own currency. So like on the street, people will say, oh, if you want to pay back your loan in trillions of dollars, like all these things, they are backed up by gold, as in the reserve and foreign reserve currencies are backed up by gold and all that. You know, like we have our own is backed up by the US dollar. We have foreign reserve, foreign currency and all that. So on the street, people will say that the United States can easily just if he wants to pay back his loan, can easily just go back and print more dollars and pay because the United States is indebted in its own currency. Whereas Nigeria were indebted in foreign currency. So we want to pay back this loan, we want to pay back this loan in the foreign currency that we are indebted in. The challenge here is that there is nothing wrong in borrowing money for developmental purposes. There's nothing wrong in borrowing money. And as it stands, all the budgets that we have had in this country in the past decades, I would say, coming down to where we are now, the budgets have always been deficit budget, and the expenditure has always exceeded the income. What the government intend to, that is one of the factors that also drives inflation. When you have a deficit budget, a budget that the expenditure, what you want to spend, is more than what you are expecting to get. So how do you finance such budget if you are not going to borrow? So one of the reasons why government borrow money is possibly, Nigerian government, let me not say government generally, is to possibly finance a deficit budget or to finance specific projects that will add economic value to the country.
You said it's not a crime to borrow.
Yes, it's not. There's nothing
Are
wrong
you
in
saying
borrowing.
for the case of Nigeria, they borrow to finance projects or specific budget?
Or deficit budget.
Or deficit budget.
Yes.
You've been in this country for over 3 decades, over four decades. Yes.
Over.
Now, from what you can see, this money being borrowed, are they really used for this budget?
That is just the challenge. That is the indiscipline in government, the recklessness in government. Like I used to tell people, I started working in the University of Benin as a lecturer. I started from the very first rung of the ladder, graduate assistant. And I used to tell people that I don't think I have ever earned full salary. I don't think, maybe the only time I have earned full salary, that my salary came to me in full, that's loan deduction. Maybe when we went on strike and they were paying us, they were not doing deductions, they were just paying us straight from IPPIS. The money was coming in block. They didn't do all the deductions. For me, as an individual, there's hardly anybody in the teaching profession that will be able to save money to buy a car or to possibly build a house, if not through borrowing. We have cooperatives in the University of Benin and many other places too. Civil servants, the salary is poor. If you really want to build, all the cars that I have bought, I've always taken loan. And I do not regret because I'm taking this loan for specific purpose. And you know the interesting thing for me? I love to take loans. You know why?
Why?
Because I have watched the Nigerian situation. If you take a loan today of, let's say, S Naira, and you are paying back tomorrow, definitely the value that you are paying back tomorrow is far, far less than the value of the money that you have taken. Because the Naira keeps depreciating against the dollar. The purchasing power keeps reducing as the case may be. So I love to take loan because what I'll be able to use the loan to achieve today, if I have a year or two to pay back that loan, even with the interest, if I'm so okay, let me be saving to the cooperative so that when I finish saving that specific amount, I will not pick it up and go and execute the project that I want to execute. I'm very sure, in most times I've done the analysis, what the money that I borrow now can achieve at the end of the year or 2 years when I will be repaying back that loan. The loan itself, the principal plus the interest cannot even achieve half of that. So most times I see these borrowing agencies as people who are losing in the long run because we don't have a stable currency.
Now, liken it to Nigerian situation. The people are worried.
The money, you see, these monetary agencies that keep doling out monies to Nigeria, it is not for frivolity. So these monies are doled out to Nigeria for, like I told you, either to finance a deficit budget, but the recent one now is to finance specific projects. the only challenge, like I told you, that we have in this country is the recklessness of government and the indiscipline in governance. And the worst part is that nobody is being held accountable for all this. This money is coming to finance specific projects, and at the end of the day, the money end up in private pockets. That is the only challenge. It is not if you possibly collect a loan to finance a road. Like the government recently is talking about tolling, that they want to build toll gates in specific places, and so that they can use monies collected from those tolls to possibly maintain the road and to pay back the monies that was used to build the road. So if the Nigerian government is really sincere, sir, this loan can be repaid back in a few years. If you collect money to build a road, for instance, and you put toll on that road, like the Abuja-Kaduna road, they want to toll the road so that they can get monies to possibly for subsequent maintenance of the road and all that. If you collect money to build a road, for instance, and you toll the road, the money you are going to get from tolling, it will be enough for you, sir, to repay back that loan. But in our own case in Nigeria, that is why, see, these monetary agencies, like I told you, that used to do like the World Bank, African Development Bank, IMF and all that, they have seen prospect in this country that we are capable of repaying.
Then how come we're not being able to repay?
It's because our government, you want to call the government that we have had in this country over the years, I don't want to say there are no government. There's so much corruption in the Nigerian system that the corruption stinks.
All
So
right.
it
The corruption stinks.
It stinks. So
You just hold
that's
on.
why we are where we are.
Okay, you just hold on.
In the word of Professor Sibanjo, that's why we are where we are.
All right, if you just joined us, this is TMI. We're taking a look at Nigerian debt profile. Yes, means fresh borrowing. Yes, for this year. We want to go for a break. When we return, we'll continue with this discussion. Do not go away. Join us right now in the studio. He is a clergyman, a political analyst. Join me to welcome Bishop Bright Olumese. Bishop, thank you so much for joining us in the studio.
Good morning, Wisin.
All right.
Good morning, viewers at home.
Well, we're listening to Professor Olobu. He's saying there's nothing wrong in borrowing. But the issue is having this been payments or repaying the loans and leadership. Here we are as a nation. We are deep in debt. We're talking about trillions right now. And here we are going to collect another loan, over $2 billion US dollars. And of course, the IMF is ready, ever ready to give to Nigeria. But what do you feel about this trend?
Okay. Thank you, Wisin. Good morning once again, viewers at home. My take in this borrowing issue, when it comes to Nigeria in particular, where we have the issue of leadership, accountability, and what have you, you discover that it is now a problem that we should be concerned. Naturally, borrowing shouldn't have been an issue. Civilized countries, big countries, they own. But now, Nigeria in particular, in view, you have issue of accountability. People are not accountable. This money, they borrow them, make the money available for looters to loot them, and create the debt for unborn children to be paying. That is a very big concern every reasonable Nigeria should have. A situation whereby right now, Nigeria is borrowing to subsidize or pay debts, to service debt, sir, is a concern, heavy concern. Now, let's look at the statistic. Nigeria presently, revenue ratio is only growing by 7%. While the debt is growing on 100 and something percent. So you can see that it's just a few years more, Nigeria will be in crisis. And this was the reason why we did not trust government when they said they were going to remove fuel subsidy so that we can have more money. They are reinvesting it. Now I'm very sure fuel subsidy over a year has gone. Where are the reinvestment they've made with the money and all of that? So for Nigeria, as a case of study, borrowing should become an issue. It should become a national issue where people need to have their say, because we have a country where people are not accountable. Now, let me do a reflect. Last administration, we have the Minister of Transportation, who had borrowed a lot from for China to build railway. Where are the railways? Where are those millions of dollars? Now let me bring you to what maybe I heard what you were saying or whatever. The IMF are ready to give. They are in business. They don't care about what your economy is all about. They want to take over your government. They want to run the place and all of that. These man, just like when you see local money lenders here, they don't want you to pay back. They pay back capital. Just keep bringing the interest. That's why they are in business and all of that. So please, for the interest of our born children, borrowing should be a concern. I have issues with the fact that you have to borrow to fund your budget. We are not borrowing now for capital projects. We are now borrowing every year, financial year now, we must borrow to fund budget.
So deficit.
Deficit, heavy deficit. Now, number one, the Nigeria economy management said that Nigeria does not have borrowing problem. Nigeria have revenue problem. And I ask you, Nigeria is not under charge. Nigeria is paying so much, but few is being accounted for. Go to all government revenue collector, you have extremely rich directors because there are loopholes where you don't build system to get tasks. You raise strong men who became more strong and can fight the state. There are certain persons in this country that can sponsor and make this country ungovernable because of the kind of wealth they have amassed through the loopholes the government has also created. There is a concern. Nigerians must not play it doesn't mean anything. To borrow is a good thing, but particularly in Nigeria, it's not becoming good thing. There is a heavy challenge because the money they are proposing to take again, I can tell you for it, is to settle some grievance people that are not happy, people that political office did not get to. I can give you that for free.
You are just alleging, right? That you don't.
I'm alleging anyway. You can call it alleging, yeah. But that's how we got to this place. All the money we have borrowed during President Buhari, where are all of them? Anyone accounted for? No. It's state government. The biggest challenge I even have now is that most of this money are borrowed. The public are not aware. Governor goes to borrow money and just connive with the so-called member of House of Assembly. If they even carry them along, only God knows. They collect the money. They pay them off what you call oversight function, and they just the next thing you see, a government is finishing its administration. The next government is coming and announcing you that the debt profile has risen over 200%. Now you begin to wonder, when was this debt taken? So for Nigeria, personally, Nigeria case in study, borrowing should be an issue.
Borrowing should be an issue. All right, Prof, you give an analogy that borrowing shouldn't be an issue. Even in America, people live their life on loans. Yes, in Europe, the same thing. But in our country, this shit is not balanced.
Well,
it is not balanced.
Well, we see. I don't like to make frivolous statements.
Yes.
Statements that I cannot prove. Because when you allege, the onus is on you to prove. The burden of proof is on you as an individual. So when we come to a studio like this, where we have billions of viewers, we should be mindful of the things we say, because when they call upon you to come and prove, it becomes a problem. I will always maintain, like in many quarters, people believe that the United States of America will not pay back its debt. I've said that before. Will not pay back its debt. It is just, I have maintained before my brother came on stage. Borrowing as it is for Nigeria, because of the deficit budget that we have had, then sometimes this deficit budget, we have deficit because of the rising cost of overhead. Overhead, we now borrow money to do overhead, not for capital projects and all that. It becomes an issue. And again, too, like I said earlier, if we borrow money to finance specific projects, there's no issue with that. Because it is believed, like he was mentioning about railway, the former minister of transportation.
You wrote to me, Amidst.
Yes, borrowed money to fix railway, rail, and then, of course, and everything. Ideally, sir, if you have a functional system where there's no leakage, where people are being held accountable, these things should be able to repay back the loan.
Yes.
Should be able to repay back the loan. So for me, as an individual,
If these things are supposed to be able, as you've opined, to
Yeah.
repay back the loan, how come we are borrowing to service our debts?
that is just the challenge. Like the government used to sell what is called through the debt management office.
Yes.
They will sell treasury bills to people. That's another form of borrowing, internal borrowing, and all that. That's local borrowing. But for me, for one, I don't think I will even use my money to buy treasury bill because the naira is not stable. It keeps depreciating, and then the money that you have used to buy treasury bill, even with the interest that you're going to pay at the end of the day, you may still be on the losing side because the naira has nosedived drastically. Now, for Nigeria as a country, Nigeria is a case, and it's not as if we Nigerians, okay. So if for instance we Nigerians now, we Nigerians are not the problem. The problem that we have is leadership. There's hardly any country in the world where they don't borrow money. They borrow and they're able to manage these things, this borrowed money, to execute their specific projects, and at the end of the day they get results and their economy is developed. Do you get what I'm saying? The problem that we have is that the leadership, it has always been an issue. It didn't start today. And then when I also hear people talking about, they are borrowing money for our children to come and pay back, I laugh. Because where we are now, leaders beginning from Babangida or before date back, they have borrowed money. So how are we now paying back this money? People will say, you are paying back this money. There are all these various tax, that they put this POS tax and the others. And you go to the ATM, you pay 100 naira and all these things. Many of all these monies, they end in private pockets. So for me, sir, borrowing is not a problem. Borrowing is not bad if it is borrowed for specific projects. And I come to think of it, will you even be worried? Should Nigeria even be borrowing?
Now that's a question I want
Should
to.
Nigeria even be borrowing? Let me speak to that. Should Nigeria even be borrowing? Because we have had foreign bodies repatriating funds stolen by Nigerians that they went to lodge abroad. The funniest part about this country is that nobody hears anything about these repatriated funds, how the funds are spent. They will tell you, these funds are going to be the one that they repatriated for Abacha. They said, they are going to be given to the poor of the poorest. How do you identify the poor of the poorest? So the government that is repatriating this money is saying this money will go to the poor of the poorest.
All right.
They were able to identify people that they want to dispense this money to.
All right.
But if those monies can be used for specific projects that will benefit the generality of the people, it would have been a good thing. So my brothers are sorry to
Please
add this. The problem we have here is not the borrowing. The problem we have here is our leaders who will end up pushing this money to settle people, and the money will end up in their private pocket without accomplishing the reason why the money is being borrowed.
Over now to you, Bishop. He said, as a country, we don't have a reason to borrow. After all, that Abacha loot Several trains have been sent back to the country. You go to Europe also, they are sending money back to the country. Talking about dollars right now. So does it really make sense that we are borrowing as a nation? I have to call it a wrap on this discussion.
Okay, that is not even the issue. When you talk about sustaining the economy of your country, you need to look at the indices. Number one, your revenue base. Because the returning looted loan will not continue. Do you get that right?
Yes.
It's the same way we are questioning this money they borrow, that they just borrow it and squander it. That's why we are seriously concerned. Now, if Nigeria had leaders, it's simple: build infrastructure. If you are borrowing this money and there are infrastructure, and through that infrastructure, business are growing, more taxes are being collected, reforms that comes in, that brings in foreign investors. Investors are leaving Nigeria. The revenue base is dropping by the day, and you are still going to borrow. It doesn't make any sense that this thing is good for everybody, and at a particular time it's not good for your body. Please don't take it. Okay. So, in other words, Nigeria going forward must hold this government or a government at all level responsible. One, infrastructure should be a must, so that there will be more revenue. Okay, now let me ask you: is the level of insecurity in this country, which foreign investor will come and invest here? Tell me, when you look at the road infrastructure, nothing to ride up. Lights, nothing to ride up. So now let me tell you, the reason why we are borrowing is because we cannot secure our oil facilities. The level of theft daily basis. We're not even praising the head of one militant group, who they say because of him, that's the reason why Nigeria can even equal the share.
Our time is up. Our time is up. Not too worried. I have another avenue to really expatiate more in this particular discussion. Remember, we're born for power. Where's our power today? We're born for so many things. Are you enjoying those things? Say that the reason why we're born because of this. We're born also to fight insurgency. What is going on? Prof, I know you have so much to say. Bishop, I know you have so much to say, but we have to call it a wrap right now.